Greetings. Welcome to Politics America. Yay! I'm supposed to have a fancy website with all sorts of spam and pop-ups. And I should be asking for your email, and once I have your email, I'll be bombarding you with donations 6 times a day through your email account. Nah. Keeping up a website like that is just too much work. This is basically a middle-aged man with a flip cam, here to discuss some of the issues which I have become issues in this election. This time out, we're going to talk about immigration and our border problem and everything having to do with it. Current situation really is completely untenable. We have deported foreign nationals coming back to this country and killing American citizens, causing all sorts of crime and havoc. We deport them, they come right back. That cannot be tolerated. Now, regarding Donald Trump, he is, in essence, partially correct. If you are a foreign national with a felony record, you aren't going to pass a background check in your own country, let alone ours. So, if you are a foreign national with a felony record, you are in this country illegally. That's not to say all illegals are criminals, but you can be assured that at least some of them are. And there's also the matter of why neither party wants the status quo to be changed. They both love the open border for various reasons. The Democrats love the open border because illegal aliens can be converted into Democratic votes. Simple matter to come into this country, find someone who's deceased, get a hold of their social security number, from there get a birth certificate, and from there get a driver's license, show that to the person at the election booth, and that's a vote for the Democrats. Now, as far as the Republicans go, most folks contributing to the Republican campaigns, big business, and if they can hire an illegal, they can pay them less money, no benefits. That increases their bottom line. If you think that any corporation is going to be fined for hiring illegals, you have to consider how preposterous that situation is. You see, these corporations spend millions and millions of dollars buying senators and House representatives in Congress who make the immigration laws. So you're never going to be seeing anybody like Walmart paying a fine, unless it's for a soundbite, because they own all these politicians. There's really only 4 ways you can realistically, permanently, and legally migrate to the USA. You get a fiancé visa, a work visa, refugee status, or somehow winning the diversity lottery. Standard legal immigration could take so long, and all but encourages foreign nationals to enter the USA illegally. And once they're in this country, we have no idea where they are or what they're doing. Operation Streamline is only effective if you can catch who's crossing illegally. All that it really does is criminalize people who want a better life for themselves. If you aren't fortunate enough to be in the aforementioned categories, you can apply to your local U.S. Embassy. If approved, you get a waiting list up to 40 years long. There's also the problem of OTM, foreign nationals entering this country illegally. That stands for other than Mexican. As of late, we have found Korans, edicts written in Arabic and Urdu. Urdu is a Pakistani language, and many other sorts of disturbing things. If Pakistanis are coming to this country illegally, who else is? It's obvious our immigration policy is broken, more ways than one. Even if you're in one of the aforementioned categories, the procedure is so bureaucratic and onerous, only those with the patience of a saint persevere. Even if you're like in one of these categories, you still have to fill out this paperwork, this form, this paperwork, this form, this paperwork, and so on. Ad infinitum nauseam. It's just not really even worth it, your time. Politicians allowed you to blame for this mess. First off, They create and use these little sound bites for the electorate. Of course, the electorate lives in the 62nd world with the smartphones. And ultimately, politicians have been in politics long enough are no longer working for the people. They're working for themselves. It's time for a solution to this problem that's politically neutral, directly addresses the problems, or most of them, versus waiting for a politician to do right by the electorate, or before another 9/11 occurs. Another attack on the USA occurs first. More bad legislation, like the Patriot Act, will be passed, reducing our rights even further. My solution to this matter is called open, controlled immigration without quotas. Quotas are bad for at least two reasons. Both of them are political. First one is that if a country knows that it can send so many people to this country, the USA, they then have the power over those visas. They then will also be playing sorts of games as to who can get the visas to go to this country. That would not necessarily allow the best and the brightest to emigrate. Second reason, and the bigger reason, is that politicians at home here in the USA, they can play political football with these visas. Use them to scum for votes. Come on, we all know they do that crap. But for instance, they'll say, vote for me and I'll let a few more of this nationality come into the USA. That simply isn't right. Once they start interfering in the matter, it gets more and more complicated, more and more crooked, more and more corrupt, more and more unmanageable. There's also a matter of treating all immigrants the same. Why should a native-born Canadian have to wait in line behind somebody from Gambia or Laos? They're right over the border from us and they already speak English. No matter what USA does, whether our gates are open or closed, people are going to come into this country. They'll arrive in this country, legally or illegally, and despite the garbage stains that represent some of our politicians, this land is still a land of opportunity. Now, if they can't come here efficiently in a legal manner, which, like I said, they have to wait 40 years sometimes, they're going to come here illegally and hide out until the next, quote, amnesty, unquote, is given to them. My proposal will not only kill off most illegal immigration, it will represent a final amnesty for the illegals still in this country, and will keep most of the criminal element out of this country that we don't want here in the first place. In exchange for this, at some point in time down the road, law enforcement will be able to directly arrest people in this country illegally. Now, our problem with immigration can be stated as an analogy. The analogy is a bucket and water. Let's say you have a bucket, which is our policy, to transport water, which are the people coming to this country, from the river, wherever they come from. What do you think happens if you have a leaking bucket? You can scoop up water with a leaking bucket, but as you leave the source of the water leaks out, going everywhere. You have no idea where it's going. Not to mention you won't have very much left when you get to your destination, places where they can come in legally. So, first thing that you need to do before you start gathering up water is plugging the bucket. You plug the bucket using two procedures. The first procedure is that you seal off all 1,954 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border, from Brownsville Texas to San Diego, California. A 25-foot high concrete wall should be sufficient to do so. And considering the climate down there, this could be erected in 6 months to a year's time, depending on what resources you wanted to devote to it. This is not to keep people out of the country. Well, correction. This wall will keep the criminal element out of this country. And once we have the wall built, we need to place the whole thing under watch. Take the Border Patrol units, reorganize them into rapid deployment force entities that can swarm any place in your sector in a matter of moments. At the same time, use ground radar search to find any tunnels that you can, and either block them closed or blow them closed. This ultimately will protect our sovereignty, which we have a right to do so, and will keep the criminals and the bad elements out. Now, the second thing that we do, this is where things get really different. Did you know that Ellis Island processed almost 200,000 people a year on average between 1892 and 1954? This was using analog technology. It's now 2014, and we have digital technology. We can do this a lot better than we could back then. What we do is we start finding locations all over the country that can be converted into what I call Immigration Processing Centers, IPCs. Think of them as digital Ellis Islands, but instead of one Ellis Island, as many as we need. You probably wouldn't even have to build as many versus repurpose existing buildings for this project, because there's probably suitable government property living all over the USA, lying all over the USA. Show up in an IPC, submit to a background check and fingerprinting. If you run the gauntlet, that is, no felony record or criminal violations, you get a brand new green card. Charge $75 per individual or $150 a family, and have that money deducted from their first paycheck. Be easy enough to mark the new green card, so that will be done. Do not let the Congress have any of the money that is generated past what is needed to pay back the initial cost of this project, because it will both be used to pay the employees of the IPCs and upgrade existing or open new locations as needed. It will take some money to start things up, but this process eventually would be close to self-supporting from the processing fees that would be generated. It will largely replace the rather inane visa application process that's currently in place, in the USA at least. If you're a good little green card holder for 5 years, 3 years if married to a U.S. citizen, and you get to be a naturalized U.S. citizen, provided you meet the other reasonable conditions. At that time, your IPC fingerprint data will be shredded, unless you are arrested for a criminal offense. Now, you have repaired your bucket so that it will no longer leak. With the wall placed at the border, that is to keep out the criminals and the human refuse we don't want. The IPCs in place for the law-abiding citizens to gain entry to the USA, we now have control of the situation. While law-abiding immigrants get a green card with a new streamline system in place, at least on our end, we get to know where everyone is located. Once the system is in place, issue a clearing call. All illegals already in the USA will be given 6 months to report to an IPC to be processed. This will be a final amnesty, because we have given the illegals an easy way to get to this country. We have also, by this method, essentially going to kill off most all illegal immigration, unless of course you're a criminal and don't want to be found or don't want to be discovered, kicked out of this country. Extra vigilance will be needed regarding both student visas and a certain sort of freeloader we don't need. There are people, mostly from Mexico, who go to the USA, apply for government aid, set up a direct deposit to a US-based bank account, and then go back home to withdraw the transferred funds with a debit card. The only way to stop this is to be vigilant as to who is where. An alert could be thrown any time a US-based bank account opened by an illegal or green card holder is accessed from outside the USA. This could be done at the bank end of things, electronically. Like I said, we're in a digital age. People like these are caught. They should be barred from coming to this country unless the aid is paid back beforehand. Now here's where it gets interesting. After that time has expired, being here illegally will be cause for immediate legal detention. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. With no exceptions. Exceptions could be made at the court level. Streamlining could be incorporated into this aspect of things to either allow the detained illegals to go to an IPC or be deported with a persona non grata designation. Since the IPC system will be in place, there would essentially be no excuse for you to be here illegally because of the system that we've used. If we find someone with a felony record, we streamline them out of the USA permanently. If they come back under persona non grata scenario, they could be arrested on sight. As for our native Canadian friends, they should be allowed an even faster process for coming to the USA. After all, most all of them already speak English. That is true, they do. What will my solution accomplish? To review, the main route to the USA illegally, Mexico, is fully sealed off with a continuous barricade. Any attempt to circumvent the barricade by sea on either end would be contained by the U.S. Coast Guard. That is what they do after all, guard the coast. You have removed essentially all incentives for illegal migration via Immigration Processing Center. A true, finally, amnesty that solves the problem once and for all and removes the political consideration in the question, in the equation. If there are essentially no illegals to hire, then how can you find somebody for hiring illegals? And the folks with the brand new green cards, they'll work, they'll pay taxes, and we'll know who is where. If you decide to cause trouble after you get a green card, like committing a felony, we find you, we revoke your green card, and after you served your prison time, we permanently kick you out of the country. You screw up, you lose. The $75 to $150 fee for processing people into this country. Those fees eventually would be used to pay the employees of the IPCs in modifying or opening new facilities as needed. Do not let the politicians get control of the money, or they'll simply spend it, just like with Social Security. This keeps government out of the equation. Make sure that the IPC workers are civil service. This system will also have a positive effect on a southern neighbor. Do you know that Mexico uses illegal immigration to the U.S. as governmental policy? You could be assured that not all the ones they send up here to be in the U.S. are law-abiding citizens. With this system in place, Mexico is going to have to modify their stance. Might even produce some internal change in the country. Who knows? If the criminal elements south of the border wish to start a firefight at the border, we can respond in kind. Anybody attempting to cross that barrier is someone that does not want to be caught going through an IPC. Chances are they're some sort of criminal. And I know there's some objections to this. How will we pay for this? Well, how much are we paying every day now while more and more illegals flood into the USA? How much do they cost state economies and healthcare and law enforcement expenditures? No criminal or never-do-well is going to risk going through an IPC and be caught. They'll be the ones trying to sneak in illegally. They are the ones we do not want in this country. The barrier and the IPCs will eventually pay for themselves, as well as provide decent work opportunities for bilingual and multilingual people. You see here, it's a violation of the illegal immigrants' rights to bar them from a better future. No, it's a violation of our rights that we have to suffer the flood of illegals in this country with essentially no controls. Our tax money pays for what services the U.S. they use, and our law enforcement has to waste manpower rounding them up. Barriers to preserve our sovereignty increase our safety. They can go to an IPC because if they have nothing to hide, they'll get a green card and be allowed to be in this country legally. Of course, if they have a criminal record or a persona non grata, then the argument's void. We are not entering their country illegally, putting a grievous load in their infrastructure. It's our right to protect this country and know who is entering it, and most importantly, know who is where. They'll come in by sea. Now, a far more difficult means to enter. We do have a Coast Guard, also by putting an IPC at either end of the barrier, along with IPCs in coastal cities. This will once again take away the incentive to legally immigrate to the USA. Also, it would be a little difficulty for the U.S. Coast Guard to put up an electrical digital scan around vulnerable locations to catch those who try to enter illegally. In conclusion, I have yet to see any immigration reform bill in Washington addresses the border first and foremost. There's no point in offering amnesty with an open border, because more will flood in for the next round. I will personally vote against any candidate or incumbent that votes for amnesty without sealing the border first, votes for any proposal that allows the federal government to milk this issue for their own personal gain while disregarding any security risks. It's time to make this immigration reform issue a true and final answer. My solution actually is workable and addresses most of the issues that need to be addressed. I welcome all commentary and suggestions, either pro or con. This has been Politics America. Until next time, see you later.